Hello. After my last post here on Instagram, I got a ton of requests from people if I could keep a log of my reassembly process with the system behind me. So in this video, I'll share some of my thoughts and considerations on optimal system layout, especially with larger systems like this one. Let's go! As you can see, I took everything apart and it's all sprawled out over the floor. I put some plastic underneath it so that I don't damage any modules. But all of these modules that you see here and these side cases as well eventually need to end up right here in this big system. I'm gonna have some problem with that because I suspect that I do not have enough space in this system to actually fit everything. I do still have some side boats over there and right there, and there's one more corner piece. But I had a lot of modules that were basically just chilling in boxes while I wasn't using them in the main system. And the main system was never really fully populated or under control in any way, shape, or form. So I kind of suspect that I am gonna need some more cases to fit everything, but for now I'm just gonna assume that everything is gonna fit and we're just gonna make it work. If not, then hopefully this layout will kind of keep that in mind so that I can expand on the sides or anything in such a way that it still makes sense in the bigger layout of everything. When I started out with modular synths about 10 years ago, I think my system was around 800 HP, something like that. That system was an absolute mess. Like, none of the modules I had in there made any sense. Like, I had something like 16 oscillators and there were 2 VCAs. I didn't have any sequencing whatsoever. Drums were impossible. The only way I could do anything was just plug everything into a big feedback loop. Seriously, the only thing I got out of that thing at the beginning was bird noises. The weird thing about that case itself was that it was 4 rows of 216 HP. And anyone who has ever stood in front of a modular system, well, yeah, most of them are 84 HP wide or something like that. And then you have perfect overview of whatever is going on in front of you. But with a 200 HP case like that, well, yeah, if you're standing on the left side and there's something on the right, well, who knows, that's not in front of you. So you're not going to bother checking what you can do with those modules on that side. So I noticed very early on that where I placed my modules was of crucial importance on how I was going to interact with everything that I had in that case. I tried many ways of organizing my case in a way that I would get more inspired and try different things. Some of those ways kind of worked. A lot of them really did not work at all. Like putting all your filters in one corner and all your oscillators in another corner and then hoping that magically somehow you're going to connect the two with cables that are long enough to go 2 fucking meters from one side to the other. Or the other thing that was always absolutely horrible is when you have this massive knot of cables and stuff and things that you're trying to reach behind to get this module and turn whatever function is behind there, which is crucial for whatever you're doing. But you can't because there's so many cables right in front of there. So instead you start digging about with something else again. And well, yeah, that case is just unworkable. So yeah, grouping modules by function is an absolute no-go because in the end, you're just going to make a mess of everything and it's not going to be inspiring. Seriously, did I mention cable clutter? Because, yeah. Anyway, moving on, the next thing I tried was something that was a little bit more focused on how to get creative with the modules that I had. And I wanted to have everything easily accessible right in front of me, and the stuff that I played with, I wanted it somewhere at eyesight level or whatsoever. And I kind of opted for a system where I had my filter somewhere in the middle and all the functions and stuff like that, the modulation sources and everything were on the outer skirts, and I would kind of patch my way in towards the system. And I had my sequencers in the bottom row and all that stuff. So the top rows were all the modulation sources, were all the noise things, were all the LFOs and all that stuff. And the filters were basically right in the middle of my system. The oscillators were somewhere in the middle of my system. And well, yeah, patch flow wise, at first it seemed like a good idea and I had everything right where I needed it and things felt creative and felt cool. But then, well, yeah, as patches grew bigger and bigger and bigger, the same thing happened once again. Seriously, someone should invent wireless modulars because cable clutter is such a... The other thing that happened right about... The other thing that happened was that I started really getting weird cramps in my arms somehow. Like, when you're making something like an 8-hour day behind a modular system, and you're just making the same arm movements with your hands or fingers or whatsoever all the time in slightly awkward positions, yeah, at some point you're gonna feel cramps and your arm is gonna feel weird, and it's kind of the same, I guess, as, what's the thing called with type typing computers and everything where your fingers start feeling like they died or whatever. Let's call it a serious case of noodle arm. So I was having pretty severe noodle arm and I couldn't patch for longer than 15-20 minutes at a time, and it hurt like hell. So yeah, something about that layout had to go. So I went back to the drawing board and developed a system which I've been using for the past couple of years, which actually feels very good. I'm actually quite happy about it. So what I've been doing for the past couple of years basically is all my controls, like the sequencing and stuff like that for drums and for melodies and everything, is lying flat, probably all the way down to the first row where I can bend over and see everything. And my filter controls, well, particularly the Macbeths, they're all in the top row where my hands can reach very easily. There's no cables right in front of it, and my arms feel quite nice while I'm playing around with it. I've been doing the same thing both for my smaller systems as I've been doing for the big case, where somehow a layout like that kind of feels very, it sparks creativity for me, where I can really play around and do things where I know where I have to look for it. And at the same time, it really helps out with cable clutter as well. And that's something that over the past couple of years really has become one of my top priorities is cable clutter, ergonomics, and creativity. Those are the things that I want when I look at a system and I want to play around with it. So even though I've had this massive case for a couple of years now, I've only ever really organized half of it. Well, not even half, like a third of this case has ever really been organized. And the reason is pretty simple and painfully simple, actually, is that I had no room or no place for the entire damn thing. So I had a bunch of modules which always ended up in boxes because I was always hot swapping modules in and out of these two cases, because these two cases were also the ones that I was taking with me on tour, especially when I had to go far off. Then I only took like the small sidecars, but even then I was always taking modules out of there and putting them in a box and taking something else out and putting it back in. So this is the first time for me that I ever have a location where I can put the entire system in one place and think about a layout that works for the entire system. On top of that, I made a deal with myself that I'm not gonna take this system apart anymore for live usage or whatsoever. So this system is gonna live in my studio from now on. I'm not gonna take it anywhere else. So I won't ever have to screw things out or mess up my layout or do stuff like that because of reasons that have anything else to do than me wanting to play something somewhere else. So in other words, this is the first time that we're gonna be building my full entire modular system in one place. And this is also going to be the first time ever for me to really play with the full system that I have, because I've honestly never done that before. The size situation with this system is slightly worrying, as in what I said earlier about the 200 HP system that I used to have. The main issue was that it was too wide, you know, like something is going on the left side and I'm standing on the right side and I just lose track of what's going on over there, and I'm not even bothered to play with it. So there's always going to be these dead pockets of forgotten modules. And that's a shame, because usually there's a ton of fun stuff to play with, and me just not doing that, it all has to do with the fact that I'm not standing in front of it. And me being totally ADD and all over the place and everything, there's plenty of blinking lights right in front of me, so that's what I get attracted to and that's what I'll be playing with. So that's something that I have to confront in a way. And I think I have an idea which might work. And the idea basically takes some inspiration from city planning, where you build districts on a system. What I mean by that is that right in front of me I want my controls. Then I have my leads on the top row in front of me. I'm going to have like a polyphonic corner somewhere over on the right side. I'm going to have more of a sound design corner somewhere else. And my drums are going to be scattered nicely where I need them. And that way, all these corners of the system are slightly themed in a way where if I go there, I can have like this little adventure of things going on in that pocket, and then I can figure out a way to bring it back into the core loop of the whole thing. Another idea with the whole districts situation is that because I have all the modules I need to do a specific type of function or a range of functions in one corner, I can do all the patching with short cables in that one case. So all the short cables can go in one corner, and then from there on, all I need to do is take out a couple of the longer cables to bring them back into like the central loop of the entire patch. And that way I can reduce cable clutter and not fear like death by chaos and stuff like that. So basically, just like you have a shopping mall and your doctor and all that stuff right around the corner from your house, and then from there on, if you need to do like bigger things, you go to like the city center, and that's where all the main things happen and everything. But in theory, you never really have to walk far from your house to get to the grocery store to get whatever you need or get your apothecary or whatsoever. Everything is right there on the block with you. And then for the important stuff, you take the trip and you go wherever you need to go. Well, that's what I'm trying to do with modules now. So I want to make sure that all the modules are placed in such a way that they have all the buddies they need to do interesting stuff right around them, so that I can use cables, which preferably are not going to be longer than 10-20 centimeters whatsoever, to get everything done that I need from it. And then I can take the longer cables only to bring them back into the central nexus of my system, where all the macro control of the rest of it happens. Here's what I've done so far. Let me zoom in a little bit and then I can explain what's going on here. So anyone who has ever seen one of my videos has probably heard about the Era 101 sequencer. Pretty much because this, for me, was really a game changer in Eurorack and made so many things possible for me to start really getting into polyphony and stuff like that. So this sequencer, I need it right here in front of me where I can get to it fast and easy. On the left side, I have my circadian rhythm. This thing has always been my main sequencer for drums, and I just absolutely love the thing. What I really like about this thing is it has all the jack outputs on the right side, you know, all the trigger outs and stuff like that. It has it on the side so that there's one straight line going up to the core of my system, instead of, for example, over here, the Erica drums, which is also a fantastic drum sequencer, but all the jacks are in the top row, which means if I put this right here, I'm going to have cables all over the place and they're just going to mess up whatever else I want to do. So I can't use this in my core of the case, but I'm still going to use it somewhere close by because it is an awesome sequencer. But this one just really does it for me, because this sequencer, it's nice, it's tidy, it's clean, and all the jacks are nice to the center of the whole thing. Like here, the Era 101 has the same issue where the cables are going to come out from the bottom row, which for me would really be one thing that I would love to see changed sometime, even if it's just like having them on the top here, because this is going to be on my front row and immediately I'm going to have cables hanging over it, which has always really pained me, but I'm not going to use this thing upside down because then I can't read whatever I'm doing. But for this one, I'm willing to make the sacrifice because this brings so much joy to my creative production and all that stuff that, well, yeah, I'm willing to have some cable clutter for this one. But for drums, Circadian Rhythm has it perfectly tackled. There's triggers coming out right here, and I'm not going to have any clutter whatsoever. So this is awesome. This is a little bit of an experiment for me. I've never really used these light panes, but I believe I can have a lot of fun with this. Basically, the idea is you slide your finger around the whole thing, and it does things on an X and Y axis, which is fun, which is awesome. And I've never really used it before, but I think if I place one here and I place one on the other side over here, that I'm going to have a lot of expressive control with it. These two strips are basically the same thing. I can put my finger over here and then it does things, and it's cool and fancy and fun. You can record these movements and do things with it that way. So these are going to be fantastic to have them right here in the bottom row with the jacks on the upside, which is awesome. You can flip this thing around and still read the whole thing. You see? There you go. That's super cool, so you can do it in whatever direction you want. Anyway, these are going here, these are going here. That's going to give me a lot of control, and that's what I like. I have a second Era 101 right over here. The reason why this is a secondary is because I kind of broke the encoder, I think, which basically means that whenever I put in a note, I'm going to get 5. But this thing is very much fun for experimental things like the wonky clocks, which is what I'm using this thing over here for. Anyway, so this one is still right here, front and center, in a way. I have a multiple right in between here so that I can connect things like clocks together and resets and stuff like that. I always love multiples close to my sequencers because you never know. Anyway, yeah, these are cool and I want them here. A very special mention for this mult right here is that I've always had a multiple right here at this spot, and that has a lot to do with the fact that number 8 over here gets patched over to here, and I'm using number 8 for clocking purposes, and then I mult out 3 signals from here and they go all over the place, which is always a lot of fun. Same thing happens over here with the clock output going into a mold, going into this sequence over here, going over here, and that's why this mold is always fully populated. I might even just never unpatch this thing because it's always doing pretty much the same thing. Anyway, this mold is fantastic and I want it right here. So this module right here is very special to me because this was based on an idea that I had that I needed more macro control. Like I want to be able to turn one knob and send CVs or whatever to 16 different outputs. The guys over at BirdKids, they were so nice to develop the whole thing for me, and it is absolutely fantastic. The problem is that I've never really put it to proper use because I've always had it in awkward spots or positions, and my system was never really tuned to making the most of it. So this time I've decided I'm going to place this thing right front and center. Now, what's so cool about these modules is basically I have a master control to control all these 16 outputs individually, or I have a group control to control CVs for 4 outputs at the same time, or I can control the CV out for this one thing. The CV that's being sent out when there's nothing put in, it is just an offset, which is awesome because then you can basically jack this into a filter and open and close it, and it's just going to be tight. Or when you put in an LFO, for example, over here, then this LFO is going to be sent out to all these outputs over here on the A row. Now, what's cool is that you can then from there on mix whatever's going on in here with something that's going into the CV input of the master, for example. And from that moment on, you're going to have so much awesome, weird, quirky shenanigans, like putting white noise into the master over here, sends it to all the groups, and gives you very wonky CV stuff. So this is a lovely control thing that I am dying to really put to proper use. Now I'm placing 2 over here. I can link these 2 right here so that with one knob I can control 32 outputs right here and right here. I also have a third one, which is right now right there in the back. I don't know where I'm going to place that one yet, but it's going to be used, and if it's not going to be used, then I'm going to do something fun with it. As you can see over here, these BirdKids modules have 4 individual inputs, and they have a master, CV, something what I can also use for stuff and things. These inputs need to be populated with CVs or with stuff that I want to feed into these individual lanes. Now, to really get the most out of this, I decided that I want to have this VCA matrix right here so that I can, for example, put in 4 different CV sources or 4 whatever kind of sources that I want. It can even be audio or whatever. And then from there on, mix and match what I want to send out to these 4 outputs so that I can already start mixing and matching some CVs and putting like an LFO with some white noise or putting together 2 LFOs and whatever. I can do all kinds of funny things and send it out right from here, going into the BirdKids, and from there sending it to wherever I want to go in my entire system, and it's going to be fantastic. So this thing, I want it right here, and I'm probably going to have a lot of fun with it. I love molds, and I need lots of them, so I placed a bunch of molds right here. I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be using them for all kinds of stuff, like whether it be for the light panes or it's going to be for sending whatever CV I'm putting from here into here. I want to send the same CVs over to that one, so then I can take out these 1, 2, 3, 4 into the 4 buffered molds that are going over here, and then I can send them from here to this one, and from here all the way over there. This thing with these molds is probably going to be a great expansion to have, so that's why I'm keeping these here. These mixers are placed here because for sequencing, sometimes I want to do weird stuff like transpose the entire thing. And for that, it's always a very easy way of transposing whatever sequence you have is just sequence the whole damn thing, send it over to a mixer, and then insert whatever keyboard you have, like a keyboard output from this thing, and plug it in with the mixer and send that out to whatever you have. And all of a sudden you can just basically transpose the entire sequence you have going on there just by going from one key to the next one to whatever you're doing, you know? So that's why I'm having a bunch of mixers over here, because I am sure that I'm going to do funky transposal thingy, whatever's with it. Right here is something that I haven't used at all for the past couple of years, but I'm pretty sure that I could put them to some very good use, especially in this system. Basically what this is here you have 16 inputs, as you can see, and there's 16 outputs. Now here's a pin matrix, so I can decide like this output, number 1 goes to output number 5, or input to output, whatever. And I can then just select how this entire routing works. And then let's say that I have an entirely different setting or a different section where I want one to connect to number 2 or connect to something else. All I have to do is turn the encoder, change whatever pin layout I have going on here, load it, and all of a sudden the entire system is rewired to different locations. So having this right here could be very, very interesting. There's one problem with these modules, and that is, as you can see here, 32 cables going right here is gonna be absolute mayhem. So I am a little bit worried about that. I might have to do something with these. I believe you can do stuff with multi-cables or stuff like that. So I'm still gonna look into how to properly put this to use, but I think this could be very interesting to have these right here, because this could basically just flip everything around just by twisting an encoder and pushing a button. So yeah, this is as far as I've gotten so far with the whole process of repopulating my system. Especially the start always takes a little bit of time because, well, yeah, that's where all my main control is happening. So I want to do that part good. Now, the next couple of things that I'm probably going to be doing is working on my bus section or all the effect sends and stuff like that, because I have a separate patch system for that as well. From there on, my effects placement and stuff like that and the voices and all that stuff is going to come later down the road. But this core part is the first thing that I really want to have right. So the next couple of days, I'm probably going to be spending just doing this. And then from there out, I'm going to work my way out. And the further we go, the easier it somewhat gets. But we are going to try and do everything with as much attention to detail as I can muster. So, well, yeah, anyway, this is what I've done so far. I hope it's been helpful. If you have any ideas whatsoever or questions, just post them in whatever format I'm posting this video. I think it's going to be an Instagram thing. Might even upload it to YouTube, whatever. If there's a comment section, get involved, because I need your input on these things. And if you have questions, let me know. Let's just nail this thing and make something cool out of it. Also, if anyone has a proper idea for how to get out this screw right here, which is just being a total asshole and doesn't want to get out because I completely over-torqued it or whatever, please let me know, because I am absolutely blowing a fuse over this particular screw and I'm just... Thanks everyone. See you next time. Goodbye.